following is a CUNY TV special presentation.
It's my pleasure to welcome back our great friend, former Speaker of the City Council, Quinn, who has, for the last year, how long have you been the president? Almost a year, president of Women in Need, which is such an important organization to our city, and you will hear more about it. Chris obviously has been such an important part of our city for several decades, and really has been a true leader in making New York a better place to live, work, and visit. And her new role is focusing on really an issue that I think we all feel and see literally every day as we walk through our city, and is continuing to become, I think, a concern for all of us in terms of the quality of life, and then also how do we deal with this important issue. And it is really a big challenge for our city, and how do we handle it in a humane and appropriate way. And her focus, and Wynn's focus, is on families who are homeless, and those obviously including children. And so I think we are all eager to hear more from Chris and what Wynn is doing to help solve this issue. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chris Quinn.
We're here this morning because we all know that New York City is facing an unprecedented homeless crisis. Most New Yorkers, though, aren't aware that women and children, families, by far are the group most impacted by this crisis. So before I go into policy recommendations that we've developed that we know can and will improve the situation, I want to take a moment to really set the stage for what we're going to talk about today, and hopefully what we'll be doing in the near future. Wynn, the organization I have the fortune of running, is the largest provider of shelter to homeless families with children in New York City. In fact, we house 10% of all the homeless families in New York each night. That's 4,700 people. But most startling, it includes 2,500 children on an average night. Now, our goal isn't just to get people out of shelter. Our goal at Wynn is to break the cycle of homelessness for each mom and for each child, because giving them the tools to achieve self-sufficiency and housing independence is really what all of our mission should be. We call this work the way to win. It's important for both mother and child, because a homeless child is tragically twice as likely to be a homeless adult. At Wynn, we believe we know we can fix this problem. And why do we know that? Because our inspiration comes every day from those 4,700 people, the families we have the honor to work with at Wynn. What keeps our families going? Well, honestly, some days you just don't even know, because it's really remarkable how they keep going. But what keeps them going, I believe, is their belief that they can rise from this challenge, that this is not where they're meant to be. It's that belief that makes them fight for a better tomorrow. It's that belief that makes them survive through difficult times. Let me give you an example of one of our little boys, David. He found that belief actually in one of our shelters. His mother had had a drug problem, and he had been living in foster care. But when they first moved to a Wynn shelter, his mother did a really significant thing. She started in a drug treatment program. And when she would leave every day to focus on her recovery, David would panic. He assumed she would never come back. Now, David was given a teddy bear by one of the Wynn staff, and it wore a Pepsi-Cola scarf. He called the bear Soda Man, and he took Soda Man everywhere. They were a team. Soda Man gave David a sense of security, even when his mother wasn't around. The toy didn't look like much, but it gave him the belief that his mother would come home to him every day. Like the refrain goes in a great Bruce Springsteen song, at the end of every day, at the end of every hard-earned day, people find some reason to believe. We need to give all New Yorkers a reason to believe that this crisis can and will be solved. It's estimated that more than 3,000 homeless adults currently sleep on the streets of New York. These are the individuals most New Yorkers see when they walk down the block or they ride the subway. This is the perception that most people have of homelessness. Because of this, most New Yorkers think that this is just a fact of life. They don't think there is a solution. Unfortunately, media coverage sometimes only reinforces this perspective. By overwhelmingly focusing on street homelessness, the coverage paints a picture of homeless New Yorkers as a quality of life problem that needs to be cleaned up, rather than a complicated problem that is substantially larger than what we experience on our way to and from work. While street homelessness and single adult homelessness is serious and needs our attention, wholly 70% of our homeless are women and children. People like David and Maria. These are the New Yorkers that we at Wynn call the forgotten face of homelessness. But the truth is, if New Yorkers knew that the majority of the homeless population are people just like me and you, families just trying to do better for their children, I know they wouldn't accept this as a fact of life. They would rally behind a solution to this problem because they wouldn't accept anything less, particularly for our children. Just yesterday, we broke another record, a record really we should be not interested in ever breaking. 60,017 New Yorkers were in shelter. That's the same today, if not a little higher. 23,554 were children. More children than all of the seats in Madison Square Garden. As I said, 70% of all the people in New York City's shelters are families with children, now at a record high. How do these families end up homeless? I mean, that's a question I think we all ask a lot as New Yorkers. New York's homeless face a combination of economic challenges, trauma, and mental health issues, some of which they have no control over, but all of which can perpetuate homelessness into the next generation. So let's start with the economic factors. When we ask mothers what forced them to come to shelter, the single most common answer they give is that they were evicted from their home. That speaks to two separate but connected issues: wage stagnation and a growing inability to find affordable housing. People are often shocked to learn that at any given moment, so just today, more than half of the mothers living in a Wynn shelter are employed. To put it in a particular context, the average income of a Wynn family is about $15,600 a year. That includes wages and public benefits. Imagine any of us in this room trying to find an apartment that was decent to live in and that you could afford on $15,000 a year, while also paying for food and clothing and medication for yourself and your children. It's impossible. A quarter of all families in New York City shelters reported domestic violence. to be the direct cause of their homelessness. Their direct cause. You have to add into that all of the families for whom it was also a cause, but perhaps not the direct one. We believe, as do many leading domestic violence advocates, this number of victims is much higher in reality. Homeless mothers are 3 times more likely to suffer mental health issues. Often, these issues can be traced back to childhood trauma, sometimes related to childhood homelessness. One study, in a fascinating way, compared similarly low-income women who make the same amount of money, some of whom were homeless and some of whom were stably housed. The homeless women were much more likely to have experienced childhood violence and abuse and to have been involved in systems like foster care or shelters, all experience in their childhood that was completely beyond their control. There were 42,000 children who stayed in a New York City homeless shelter last year. But I really want us to understand this. It's not good that all of these children are in shelter, but we need to change our thinking, because staying in the shelter is not the problem. Homelessness is the problem. The time families and children spend in shelter can be used to address a whole host of economic, safety, physical, and mental health challenges. It can be used to connect families to long-term services that will put them on a path to an education, a job, a better life, and put them on the path so they'll be able to live in a self-sufficient and independent way and not boomerang back and forth through shelter. It can't be understated. Pushing people out of shelter too soon is also part of the problem, not the shelter itself. That's where the belief and the work happens. Pushing them out only means they're going to come back. And as terrible as it must be to show up in shelter, and let's just be clear, you go to the intake in the Bronx, you get to bring 2 hefty bags of things with you. How demoralizing is that? You walk in with your child and 2 hefty bags of stuff. Think about having to do that twice because there was a push to get out too soon. And that reality of what really is and isn't the problem, that's why our report features a number of forward-thinking policy recommendations. There's reports on lots of chairs, that involve support within the existing shelter system and an expansion of the existing shelter system. They include ideas for reducing barriers to housing, making better use of data, expanding access, and recalibrating our focus to the whole family, including children. Taken together, we believe they will help build public will to support efforts to address the crisis and, therefore, to help break the cycle of homelessness. And Mayor de Blasio and his team, they deserve a lot of credit for taking serious steps to address this crisis, which was decades in the making. Some of their new programs, like Homestat, that connects people who are living on the streets with services, are a great step forward. The Link Voucher program was something Quinn and providers were begging the city to put into place. It provides a path out of shelter that hadn't existed for years. But thus far, the city's efforts around the siting of shelters have been piecemeal and not connected to a larger framework that can build community support. And as such, there's been growing neighborhood backlash. We need the mayor to take charge, use his bully pulpit, and help build the political will in our communities to be part of the solution. And let me be clear, I'm eager to stand right there with him and support his efforts to take that leadership and grab the bully pulpit. So in this report, we're calling on the mayor, the Department of Homeless Services, and other agencies to develop, articulate, and implement a multi-year comprehensive plan to build adequate shelters for homeless families. A plan that makes the case to communities and local officials who might otherwise be reflexively opposed to the siting of a shelter in their neighborhood. A plan that builds confidence so local officials and community members can become part of support, and empowered to combat rising opposition to the siting of shelters. Doing so is probably the only thing that will allow the city to, that's the mayor calling, he might want to do a Q&A, but it's really the only thing that will allow the city to meet its commitment to phase out, a commitment we support and called for. Without building more shelters, we're never going to get out of clusters and commercial hotels, which are not the same services for homeless families. And this plan is the only thing that will speed up construction of real Tier 2 shelters across the city. But it's not all on the city. Homeless service providers like Quinn, we have an important role to play too. Our role includes being honest about housing options, both temporary and permanent. We need to speak up when we think a plan or a building or a program will not serve our clients and step away from it. Quinn is launching on Monday a citywide public information campaign highlighting the forgotten face of homelessness. Come Monday, this campaign will be found on subway stations, MTA buses, on billboards, and online throughout the 5 boroughs. I sounded a little bit like a TV commercial there, but that's all the places it's going to be. You can see our ads here. We want to help the city and the city government build the will of New Yorkers to take this crisis head on and be part of the solution. A comprehensive plan around shelter siting also needs to be designed with input and support from local elected officials and community leaders. Because once we have a truly comprehensive building plan, we'll need to rally behind it as a city and not fall victim to NIMBYism and fear of the unknown. They need to be at the table and offer solutions, not just opposition to shelter siting. Our local elected officials must stand up. They must demonstrate true profiles and courage and not bow to some of the reflexive NIMBYism that gets in the way of real solutions. I understand the reaction from some New Yorkers, the reaction they're having to the conversion of hotels to shelters when it's done in a seemingly random and disconnected way. It's easy to feel when that happens like your neighborhood is being singled out. That's why it's critical to articulate a multi-year plan that looks at the whole problem and includes the whole city in the solution. In order to marshal the full power of our city, the mayor should appoint a temporary housing czar to realize the growth potential of New York City's affordable housing market by expediting acquisition funds, identifying potential publicly owned properties, and facilitating development. This expert's job will be to coordinate across agencies and ensure the job is getting done efficiently from start to finish, and to eke out any available resource in city government and beyond. The city is also long overdue for an update to our case management technology. This update would allow shelter providers to access a family's full history of challenges and services from all city agencies, the same way a doctor can access all of your electronic medical records. These records are just as critical as medical records, because if we had them, they would give groups like Quinn information of what those families have already been through, so we can develop a service plan with them that meets their needs. We also need to acknowledge that there's a fundamental flaw in the way the city measures success when it comes to these services. We have a system in which the goal is to move a family out of shelter as quickly as possible. And quite honestly, whether that family is ready or not. The Department of Homeless Services sets targets for the number of families that should be moved out of shelter into permanent housing every month. And as service providers, we're rated based on how well we meet those goals or we don't meet those goals. A set of apartment keys alone won't always keep someone in their apartment and prevent them from returning to shelter. Our current system forces many providers to take a family that still has unmet needs, like mental health services or drug abuse counseling, and push them out of shelter and into an apartment. We need to stop worrying about how quickly we move people out, and instead focus more pointedly on ensuring that when they leave, they're ready to stay independently housed and not return to shelter. Now, just giving families more time in shelter isn't the whole answer. We need to be providing quality services while they're in shelter, and that means increased funding for programs that support continued education and workforce opportunities. At Quinn, we have an income building program supported by private partners like Pepsi and BlackRock. The Pepsi connection has nothing to do with the teddy bear scarf, but Pepsi and BlackRock to help our clients develop workforce skills. Last year, more than half of the people in our program made at least one income gain, such as finding a job, increasing their wages, or getting a job with benefits. We must also acknowledge that young people aging out of foster care are more likely to be homeless. That's because they share many of the biggest risk factors: lack of access to stable housing, a history of trauma, or interruptions in their education. This is such an easy thing we could fix, and it would make a big difference. Because right now, before a New Yorker can qualify for a rental voucher, which we've said are a great thing the mayor's done, they have to have been in shelter or on the street for a set amount of time. So when you age out of foster care and you have nowhere to go and you're homeless, you have to enter shelter before you can qualify for a voucher and housing support. We already know these young people don't have a home when they age out of foster care. We know they're at risk. Let's not wait until they have to be forced into the shelter system before we assist and help them. So we're proposing that the city begin recognizing time spent in foster care as homelessness for the purposes of voucher eligibility. If we want long-term stability and we want to end the cycle of homelessness, we must focus on the whole family, all its members, and the family as a unit. That's why we're proposing that the city provide a comprehensive assessment for every member of the family, not just the adult, as they enter the shelter system. This assessment would include mental health, medical, and developmental screening. Now, our strategy can't just focus on what happens in shelter. We also need to make some holistic changes to our larger housing system. Mayor de Blasio, we all know, is working very hard on an ambitious plan to build more affordable housing than our city has seen in generations. But the problem is, too much of this affordable housing isn't actually affordable for WIN's families, for extremely low-income families. That's why we're calling on the city and the state to subsidize more of this new housing development more deeply and make it affordable for New Yorkers earning 30% or less of the area median income. And we need a specific set-aside for homeless families with children and other high-need homeless families. The city and state should also work together with HUD to get HUD to revise the fair market rent formula, which simply does not reflect the true cost of rental apartments in New York City. As a result, providers often have to reduce services that they offer in order to make up the difference of the cost of the rent. That's not a good idea. Even if we succeed in fixing our homeless system, many homeless families will still need a little extra help to find an apartment they can afford. And that's where the mayor's rental subsidies really can make a difference. Last year, WIN helped more than 800 families leave shelter and move into permanent housing. A little over half of them left shelter with a rental subsidy. The rest moved into a friend, a relative's home, or found an apartment that they rented without having a subsidy. So it's an even split, basically, in how people are leaving WIN shelters. But this is really fascinating. 4% of the families who returned to shelter after leaving WIN for permanent housing, only 4% who left and came back had a subsidy. The other 96% had either moved in with a friend or a family or found an apartment that they were going to pay for themselves. That's a huge difference and shows so clearly the difference a subsidy can make. This tells us that with financial support, the majority of our families can transition well and stably into permanent housing. But without that support, they fall victim, as we see, 96%, to New York City's high income costs and to overcrowding. So we're calling for a number of changes that would build on the early success of the Mayor's Link program. First, the city should immediately increase Link vouchers by 10%. Second, we need to make rental vouchers for housing permanent, as long as the family still is in the financial condition that qualifies them for a voucher. Another problem with the Link voucher system is that undocumented New Yorkers can't apply. I've heard many stories from the WIN staff about how difficult it can be to find appropriate options for undocumented families. So let's expand our rental voucher system, create a new voucher specifically designated for undocumented families with children, so we can get them out of shelter for good and on their way to long-term stability. And finally, just because a family has moved into permanent housing, that doesn't mean all their other challenges have gone away. So we're proposing that the city develop a system-wide transitional planning model that provides aftercare support for a minimum of 6 months for all people who have left shelter. In closing, I want to share one last story about a homeless woman who I think illustrates the kind of will and belief that the rest of us need to summon. She's one of the first women I met when I started at WIN. Ms. Jordan is in her late 20s. She is a seasonal employee with a New York City agency whose work year has just come to an end, as she knew it would throughout the whole spring and the summer. As such, she's been trying to secure a permanent job. She has the most lovely 2-year-old daughter, about 2.5. She knows all the fruit by name and can put all the fruit in the right spot in the puzzle, which is not an easy thing for a 2-year-old little girl. And that's all because Ms. Jordan won't let her watch TV, no video games. She just reads and reads and reads. If you go to Ms. Jordan's unit at our shelter, it's just books, books, books. And she, with her daughter, they clean like we should all be that neat. She's just an amazing woman and a beautiful child. So she had this seasonal job, which she really liked, and it ended, which she knew it would. So in response, she's not waiting for spring to come. She's been on numerous interviews over the course of the last several months. Now, unfortunately, and this has happened to all of us at times in our life, she hasn't been able to secure a job yet. In response, she's getting books, she's reading, she's going to WIN training programs, and she's working to build her skills. She continues to hunt for a job day after day. She doesn't see this as an intractable problem in her life. She doesn't think she'll be homeless forever, and she knows she'll get a good permanent job, and then she told me she wants to go to one of our city's great community colleges. Every day she gets up, works towards finding that job for herself and her daughter, Every day she does this. Why? Because she believes she can get it done. She believes it can be overcome and the problem can be solved. We need New Yorkers across the city, in every line of work, to believe they too can get it done. We need them to rally around the forgotten face of homelessness and believe there's a solution that they can and must be a part of. If Ms. Jordan, after all she's been through as a domestic violence survivor, if Ms. Jordan can believe, if Maria can believe, and if David and his teddy bear can believe, so too can the rest of us, and so must all of us. Thank you.